What's a really interesting subject to look at is ignition. And ignition plays out based on the temperature that you're dealing with. So right now I've set this to a pretty infinite value, but by default it's set to 100. Now if we go to our object source, in here we have temperature. Okay, and right now by default it's set to 300, which means that it's 3 times the heat that it needs to be flammable. Meaning that right now what's actually happening is we have our temperature already at a heat level that it will choose to ignite from. Okay, so the other thing is that we're saying add to voxel rather than set. So in other words, even if it wasn't, each time it's emitting, it's adding to that value. So it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So we could always set it to be 250 or something, and that way it would never really get to a flammable value unless we added other sources in. So right now it's set to 300. So if I go back in here, if we play this, we have no fuel really burning. Okay, this is based on what we just covered before. I still have the scene file open from when we're looking at fuel buoyancy. So right now the channel data is exposed, and we can see with a negative value that this fuel is splashing around the base. And I could turn on both of these, that way it would splash against the sides, because right now it just kind of rolls out of there. Now that means that there's no fuel right now burning, but if I set my ignition value to, well, right now it's on 100, so if I ran the sim it would instantly begin to burn up because fuel is eating away at it. So what's going to happen is it doesn't ever really get a chance to fall back down because it burns away too quickly. But if I were to set this to, let's say, 500, it wouldn't burn right away. However, over time, because it's adding, if you remember the emitter, it's adding to it, eventually it would probably ignite and begin to burn, as we can kind of see here. Now if I go back into my rendering tab, I can change fuel to fire, and we could then begin to see that fire is igniting. So I'll change it back to fuel, but I'm going to change my channel data back to standard. This way we're seeing the standard flame that we're meant to see. So in other words, what we see is the fire begins to burn almost right away, but it will probably take 1.5 frames, I'm guessing, to get to the ignition stage. So fuel begins to emit. As we can see, we have fuel created, but it's not on fire. But then, because this is adding temperature under fuel, we have it set to 100. Sorry, a temperature we set to 300, but we have it adding. So it's additive. It's continuously adding more temperature to it. So it's getting hotter and hotter till it gets to the ignition temperature and begins to burn. And don't worry about this last stuff. This is the previous sim that it's overriding. So if I run the sim, it means fuel's coming out, and then it gets to a temperature, it begins to burn, and it just means that there's all this fuel that we can't see, but it is there, and then it begins to burn the stuff up. So now if we want to play that, we're basically getting fuel burning, 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 and then it all burns away. And this is based on my particle sim, so it's not continuously adding more stuff. In other words, all the fuel's there and then it's all burnt up. So this is important because it means that most of the time you're either going to want fire or you won't want fire. But let's say that you wanted to have something that initially was fuel, and then we added additional sources in. You don't necessarily need it to be something that we're going to emit lots of fuel and then burn it. We can actually use multiple emitters, one's fuel, one's fire, and so forth. Okay, so I'll just load up this file, and just to explain this a bit more, what I have is, this is just fuel burn 1 if you load it up, and as we can see here, we just have some flames burning on the spot. Now this is just done through an emitter that I have set up, and it's pretty basic, just some fire. Okay, now what I also have is I have a particle system set up, which is really basic, and it's linked to this dummy, and this is from my Fume Effects Essentials DVD, but it's just a really simple concept, but it really drives this home very, very thoroughly. So all I have is this emitter spiraling around, and this is actually creating fuel. It's not creating fire, it's just creating fuel. So go to my object source, and we have my original emitter. I'll turn that off. Alright, but I also have my particle source, and this is emitting fuel. Now, the one thing is you'll look at is the temperature is set to 0. It doesn't matter whether it's add or set, it's absolutely 0. So there is no temperature, so the ignition temperature is, I guess, 100, I would assume. No, okay. So right now the ignition temperature is set to 0 as well, which means essentially, I might add that to 0.1 just for kicks, but it just means that it needs some kind of temperature to hit it, and if it's anything above 0 then it will ignite, and we're just doing that to make it a bit more instant. But ultimately let's just say it's 0.1, because right now the temperature of this fuel is 0. If it gets to even 0.1 it's going to ignite. So we could set it to whatever value, it's definitely going to ignite. But the thing is, it won't ignite right away because this fuel doesn't have any temperature. It can go a negative temperature, but right now we're keeping on 0, which means that it is just going to emit and it's not going to do anything. Keep in mind I've turned off, that's why it's dark gray, I've turned off my object source. So that's the thing, like we'll turn this back on if we have it off, but if we have all of this on, it means that initially we have our little flame that we had burning from before, but now we also have, I have this particle system, just make sure it's turned on, but I have this particle system and it's floating around creating fuel. So as it's creating fuel, it is a temperature of 0. Alright, whereas my fire, which is here, so basically, like right now we have this fire and it's burning, and let's make sure I turn real time off here so we can play a bit more gracefully. We have this fire and it's burning on the spot. Now, if I display the fire in the viewport, what we're going to see, or should see, alright, we'll just enable display here, and I'll bring this down a little bit just so we can see it in a bit more detail. Okay, so we can see we have this fire, and then we have where the fuel would be. So as we can see, it's definitely come in contact. So as the fire touches on the fuel, it's going to change the temperature. It's going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. So this temperature, which is initially 0, will begin to get hotter based on the fire. So technically, it might go from 650 to 1300 and keep bumping up. So in other words, almost instantly, based on the ignition value, it will begin to ignite this fuel. So in other words, we're creating all this fuel sitting here, and then this fire comes along, it's going to begin to burn it, and all the fuel is going to cause a chain reaction and cause it all to ignite. So that suddenly we get this big, massive fireball effect from this large pocket of fuel. Okay, so hopefully you get that. It's a pretty straightforward concept. The temperature of my particle system is 0. The ignition temperature is 0.1, so anything really. My fire already has a temperature hot enough to burn, so it is, and it will begin to affect my fuel here. So when I run the simulation, what's going to happen is we will get that effect of chain reaction event. The fire now is going to burn and burn and burn, and we have this fuel we can't see, but it is there, and now as you come in contact, it's going to begin to ignite it slowly, and now we can see it's beginning to burn more and more and more. Now that area is going to get hotter and cause a chain reaction, which is going to cause it to really explode and cause that explosive effect. So as we can see, we can actually use fuel as a way to choreograph what we want to do. We can have fire where we want it to be, and then we can add, with particle systems, specific areas that we want to ignite and cause them to explode as we'd like them to do. So this is really cool because we can implement all these additional layers of fuel to control how our effect works. And the finished result is we have our fire burning, 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 comes in contact and begins to explode. So there's a nutshell, essentially summarizing what the ignition does. And so by default it's 100, which means any temperature over 100 will burn. Otherwise, like the fuel, if the temperature is less, will remain the same or will not ignite. It will just sit there like gas or smoke until it does get affected and raised to a temperature that is actually flammable.